Okay, we're live.
We're live. We're doing it.
I hope. I hope we're live.
We won't know for a while, I guess.
I know it's kind of weird because I am obviously usually on the other side of this as I do our social. And so not being able to see how many people are watching or what's happening or if it's working, like it actually went live. It's a little bit stressful, but I'm just releasing that today.
Absolutely. You got to operate under the assumption there's hundreds of thousands of people tuned in. That's how I'm operating it.
That is how many followers we have. We have hundreds of thousands. And so, I mean, up to 1 million. So who knows how many viewers we'll get today.
We'll see.
Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Well. Things are good. No complaints. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. This is our first Yotpo office hours. I feel like I was going to bring like a triangle to do like ding, ding, ding. But I couldn't find one. And so instead we're drinking beer. Speaking of, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking a Lagunitas Super Cluster.
Okay.
A retro vibe to it. Not really sure how it's going to be. So you'll see it live here.
A mega IPA.
Oh, well, there you go. Look at that.
Is it your first time trying it?
It certainly is. I figured it'd be good. If nothing else, it could turn into like an IPA review podcast.
Okay. I'm happy to feel that way because I today am drinking a Juice Bomb, a wonderful IPA, the gift of upstate New York, even though I'm not sure that's actually where it's from. That is truly delightful, beautiful balance of hoppy, citrus flavors. And also I was telling Curly before we actually went live, which I, again, hope that we actually are, that every time I open a Juice Bomb, and you're looking at me like I'm going to admit the user error on camera, but I am. Every time I open the Juice Bomb, it explodes. And for a while, I was really annoyed by it. But now I just think it's really good marketing. And I'm still on board for it.
And I tried to talk you out of it. You just kind of admitted to the viewership that
I know
it's a user error. It's a you thing. You're not storing properly, something along those
lines. Like 10 people could be watching this, or thousands, or the entire Juice Bomb company. I'm not sure, but this is me saying that I love their marketing and their product.
If nothing else, we've gotten the ear of the Juice Bomb community.
Okay, so maybe next time we'll do a review of how your IPA is.
Excellent. Excellent.
Okay, let's do a cheers. Kick things off.
Cheers. Very exciting. The inaugural episode here.
Hey. Oh, oops, I think I got a little bit of liquid on there. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, so we're going to kick things off with 2 icebreakers. The first one being, Curly, what did you learn from the internet this week?
All right, so at the risk of making myself seem a little bit like a conspiracy theory enthusiast, which I swear I'm not.
Go forth.
Have you heard about all this UFO stuff that's going on?
I have not, but I'm excited.
Yeah, all right, so look. Essentially,
remember, we're live. People are watching this.
So technically, this came from 60 Minutes last Sunday, but I was introduced to it via the internet after the fact. Okay. So apparently, like UFO sightings are happening on a daily basis, literally a daily basis. Members of the Department of Defense and the military have come out on this 60 Minutes documentary, basically indicating that every single day for the last 15 or so years, there have been reported sightings of UFOs, unidentified flying objects. And I think it just goes to show how crazy of a year it's been. Like any other year, that's a pretty big headline in my opinion.
I've heard about it.
Yeah, no, and not enough people are talking about it. So maybe this is how I kind of spiral into a wormhole of alien-related conspiracy theories. But anyway, that was what stuck out to me. It's only Wednesday, so we'll see what tops that by the end of the week.
Yeah, I mean, keep me posted, obviously. I did read a couple of headlines, but most of them I think were memes of that, and so I was having trouble tracking back to the actual newsworthy part of it. So I guess what I learned from the internet this week, I guess it's actually a lack of information that I'd like to call to everybody's attention, which is that a couple of weeks ago, might have been a month, a very large rabbit, might be the world's largest from what I read, based in England and named Darius, went missing. And the owner was extremely concerned. She was like, somebody took Darius with tricky intentions, and this is not okay. And everybody covered it. Like The Cut, everybody was like, oh my God, look at this rabbit that has gone missing. It's so large. Like the woman in the picture is holding it and its legs are still flopped over. Think of that, it's big. And nobody has reported on it since. And every day I wake up and I'm like, where's Darius? Is Darius doing okay? Did they find Darius? Where is the reporting that I actually need? And I know that everybody else probably forgot about it with so much going on right now, but I'm like, I actually did want an update on Darius, and I do want to know how he's doing.
I mean, look, this was unplanned, but dare I say extraterrestrial involvement, perhaps?
Oh, wow.
Who wants to know? So now I do seem like a conspiracy theorist. 5 minutes in, it's confirmed. So
yeah, people are thinking you're a conspiracy theorist now. And frankly, I am too, but I'm not mad because at least I got the answer I needed with Darius.
We'll bring tinfoil hats next time.
Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, the next question I have for you is, what did you learn from work this week?
So this week, I rolled out my paternity leave plan, which is quite the undertaking. So what I learned basically was a newfound appreciation for parents and soon to be parents in the workplace. I think, when you're not in that stage of your life, you have these, misconceptions about how to balance work and family life. And I'm still yet to learn quite a bit of them, but I think I'd be remiss to not open this up with a shout out to all the working parents out there and soon to be parents and caretakers, because it's no joke. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I have trouble balancing having a dog, and I cannot imagine having a child right now.
No, and while as serious as that is, in part that was just me checking the box for playing on the heartstrings of any parents currently in the audience. So
good for you. Mine, unfortunately, is going to sound like a little bit more like a sponsored ad, but I'm still going to go for it. I learned from work this week that we are hiring, and we've been saying that. We've been saying that we're hiring, but I think that I really understood it this week. I mean, we are hiring a lot for like everywhere. It's going to be like Oprah. It's going to be like, you get a job, you get a job, you get a job, but not really like that because you still have to apply. But I mean, there are so many job openings. And so this is actually a PSA on behalf of our talent acquisition team that if you're looking for a job, if you were all considering a job that you want to have at Yotpo potentially, please look at our jobs page. I mean, I think that Curly and I are both pretty biased, but I really enjoy working at Yotpo. I think it's a great company. We had a marketing team event last week at Pig Beach in Brooklyn for anyone who.
Oh, very nice.
Based in the city. Yeah, it was very nice. And I moved to Hudson last summer, kind of in the midst of the pandemic, like everybody else. And it was so nice to be around everyone again. I was like, you guys are so great. It's just good people. Like, I feel like everyone I work with at Yotpo is just like good people that I can share a beer with and have a nice time. And that's a really cool thing. So if you like good people, come look at Yotpo. Yeah.
And I have 5 roles open related to SMS sales and account management. So there's my shameless plug.
SMS. It's cool.
I'm sure we won't talk about that at any point today. So.
Oh, no. We're not going to bring it up at all. Okay, let's get into the questions. So for everybody watching, this is Yotpo Office Hours. I'm Kate. This is Curly. I feel like we actually didn't do this at the beginning, but I am communications manager. I'm on the brand team, which is on the marketing team at Yotpo. Curly do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Mike Curly. I'm the director of sales and strategic initiatives at Yotpo. I lead our SMS sales and account management efforts.
Yeah, he's also like kind of our mouthpiece. And so that's why I know. That's
for better or worse. For better or worse.
Theorist. I know. And so today we're kind of coming together to have our first session of just answering questions from our audience about Yotpo, about our products, about general questions about like e-commerce, brand growth, and then also just like any big time industry changes that are kind of freaking you out or you don't know what to do. You can also ask those to us. So for our first session, we actually kind of collected these questions from webinars, emails, DMs, stuff like that. And then moving forward, depending on once we figure out how many people actually joined this session and enjoyed it, we'll hopefully have like a easier channel for people to just be able to contact us whenever they want and share some questions, and then we'll answer them in the next one. So I'm going to get started. Curly, are you ready?
I hope so. It's kind of too late now if I'm not, so let's do it.
I know, that's kind of what I think. Okay, so let's start off with the first one. Right now, paid ads drives a lot of business for us, but everyone says costs are going to skyrocket. Is that true?
Yeah, I think the unfortunate reality of the situation is that the answer is likely going to be yes. So when you think about the cookie-less world and the data privacy changes that are going to be pushed through, whether it's via the iOS updates or a handful of other changes, ultimately what that leads to is ads being a bit less effective, right? You won't be able to target people as easily as you previously had. And look, like realistically, we haven't seen everyone completely overhaul their strategy or changing their ad budgets mid-year, specifically for this. It's always in the back of, brands' minds, but I don't think we've necessarily seen this huge pivot just yet because they're still figuring things out, right? Like it's not completely certain. Nobody knows exactly what the lay of the land would be. But I think what we can say is a safe assumption is that you need to be prepared for the fact that the ads you've traditionally depended on across these different traditional channels, so to speak, are going to yield to lower click-through rates, lower conversion rates, because there's this lack of personalization that you won't be able to really achieve. But I think the other piece too is, there's adversity and then there's how you respond to it. I think in the e-commerce industry, we've been seeing rising acquisition costs for years, right? I don't think this is necessarily new. It may be a bit more dramatic, but what have brands done in these previous situations as these acquisition costs have continued to climb? You focus on other areas in addition to remedying the problem, which is repeat purchase rate, AOV, lifetime value, retention of the existing customer base you've already worked so hard to bring on board. So I think there's a lot of different ways that you can focus on that, which I'm sure we'll touch on as we continue through the conversation. But there's also the organic acquisition piece too, right? And I think that's probably something, Kate, you would know more about than I would, just from the brand perspective. But it's not easy, right? It's not like that comes naturally. So I think the organic acquisition piece is important as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a tricky one. And I feel like we're constantly having this conversation. And I think this was something we talked about at the beginning of the pandemic, or I guess the response to the pandemic, was a bunch of people being like, okay, now everybody's advertising. Everyone is running ads on social right now. How am I supposed to break through? And I think there were a lot of kind of things that came up in that conversation, which are how to think about your advertising. So how are you measuring it? Are you measuring it just based on acquisition, or are you also trying to use ads to promote retention and kind of nurture your community that has already come to your website and maybe made one purchase? And outside of ads, how are you using your organic social? How are you using loyalty programs, Yotpo, reviews, all of that really cool stuff? How are you using all of your other channels to hold on to the people that you're acquiring? Because if you're constantly just focused on acquisition, you're never it's never going to pay off. You're just constantly going to be focusing on acquisition and then eventually get to a point where you have nobody. Everybody's already come in once and left. And so the more that you can also, I think, during a time when costs are rising, you can also begin to turn and be like, okay, what can I do to build brand loyalty on a larger level and on a larger scale? The same way you think about I love Coca-Cola. I love to crack open a Coke on a nice summer day. That's lovely. But what I remember about them is they're really good commercials about bringing people together across the world. That's what stands out to me. And I'm never wow, this Coke is going to solve all the world's problems. But I do think starting to think about your marketing in that way, whether it's paid or organic, starting to think about how you can actually cultivate a community that's going to think about you. During the pandemic, so many people were like, oh, okay, my community either really cares and stepped up and is now trying to figure out ways to support me, whether you're a small mom and pop shop or a big company, or saw their entire community go elsewhere. And I think that we need to continue thinking about brand loyalty in that way. You need to continue thinking about if it came down to it, would they care if I was still around? And so I think it goes into paid acquisition, it goes into paid ads, it also goes into, your larger brand strategy, your larger community strategy, which is so crucially important, and all of that really great stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think if you have a leaky bucket problem or a strategy gets exacerbated by changes like this when you're so heavily dependent on acquisition. So the long tail of the lifetime value of the customer is more important really than ever given these changes.
Yeah. Just turns into a toxic cycle. You're just running in circles. Don't do that to yourself. Okay, now on to the next question. Sounds like I wrote this. I'm afraid of TikTok. Do I really have to go there?
There are a few things I'm more afraid of. I think I showed all my cards earlier by talking about paternity leave to like kind of indicate I am not the industry's foremost expert on TikTok by any means, but I think I can speak to it from more of just a general channel perspective, right? I mean, like other than it being a dance tutorial app, I think is the most recent research that I had personally done. But when it comes to TikTok, I think it really depends. I think if you're going to be investing in a social channel, a new social channel, there has to be some sort of clear purpose, vision, and strategy behind it. I think there's this inclination to see that, you know, customers are there, people are spending time, and there's attention that is directed towards that platform. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to go great just by jumping in, especially given the main audience of TikTok, right? If you come in with a tone deaf strategy as a company onto TikTok that's Gen Z, and I think it's exposed.
Not good. You're going to be dragged.
I would imagine. That's me. Yeah. And as a future dad, I think TikTok scares me quite a bit. But I do think it's at the forefront, right? There's some really interesting things that are happening there. I think in the EU, in a very limited capacity, at least, they've introduced some sort of shoppable functionality within the app. They're testing it. So, I mean, you can see what's on the horizon there, and, you know, you don't want to miss that boat. But I think going in without a real clear understanding of how to execute in that channel would be exposed in a way that's unique to that platform versus any other types of social channels.
Unique indeed. I have seen some brands get torn apart, and it's interesting. One brand in particular that I actually will not name that has had a balance of good and bad press lately, decided to open a TikTok, and pretty big brand, torn apart, absolutely ripped to shreds. And it was just like so sad to watch. And so also as somebody that works in social media at Yotpo, like I think my instinct is like, no, if you're asking from a place of obligation, no, don't do it. And I think like, think about the capacity of your team. Does your team have capacity to keep up with something like TikTok? Do you have a strong ideator on your team that's going to be able to not only come up with ideas, but also execute them in a way that's like not super high investment and super well produced, because that's not going to do well anyway. I think also your industry matters here. If you're in beauty, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Yes, you should be on TikTok. And if you are watching this and you're like horrified, find an influencer, find a couple that will do the work for you on TikTok that are already doing well. And that's totally fine. You don't necessarily have to do it yourself. I just think like, you know, in the same way that if you are, and a lot of companies do this, frankly, like sometimes we fall into this pattern. Not a lot, I will say that, since it is under my domain. But like, you know, posting the same thing to different platforms, like just kind of copy and pasting, this is what we're doing, come to this event or come do this. You're not really paying attention to the actual native language of the platform. So Twitter obviously has a very different language and experience than Instagram. Same thing with TikTok or Facebook. Like all of those places have different audiences and different types of engagements and ways that you're kind of expected to talk on the platform. And so if you're not actually invested in it, if you're not actually doing the work, then I really wouldn't recommend it. Like, I think the thing that haunts me at night is just like old dead social media accounts that like somebody on someone's team was like, we should open this. And then 3 weeks later, nobody ever talked about it again. And so like I use TikTok to follow dogs. All that I see are videos of dogs. It has a great algorithm. I like the dogs. They give me more dogs. But I don't like engage in the e-commerce industry on TikTok. Like it's not what I'm looking for. I'm not even sure it's like there because all I see are dogs. I'm sure it is. And so like whenever we have a conversation about it at Yotpo, I'm like, I don't know, like I'd have to do some digging. All I'm seeing are dogs. And I think that that's kind of like thinking about your audience also, like, are they on TikTok? Do they care about TikTok? It's not a platform you can BS your way through. So if they do, like, hire somebody stat. But yeah, so I say if you're asking from an like obligatory place, everybody's on TikTok, I should get on TikTok. Absolutely not. If you're asking from a place of like, hey, I might have some good ideas. Sure. That's it.
Hey, look, I am speaking out of school if I'm talking about TikTok. So you're the right person for that one for sure.
Well, you could start a conspiracy theory TikTok. You could talk about UFOs.
I have a feeling that's a pretty saturated market. Knowing nothing about TikTok, I'm sure that there's already some pretty solid following.
You're gonna have to find a niche. Like, is there a TikTok for conspiracy theorists meets like Bitcoin meets like SaaS? Like, you have to find some sort of weird intersection where you can talk about it.
Unfortunately, I think that that's probably an overlapping segment. Totally.
Totally right. Oh my God. Okay. Next question. With the pandemic starting to lift and things starting to open up again for real, do you think e-commerce is going to drop again?
I think the only thing we can be certain of is the fact that things are going to change for sure. And at this point, knock on wood, I mean, geez, pretty likely they'll change for the better, right? It would be hard to change for the worse. But I think the reality is that nothing's going to go back to the same normal, right? We used this term new normal to describe a lot of things over time. But when we think about coming out of the pandemic and trying to get to a new sense of normalcy, I think shopping and commerce, the way commerce is conducted, will reach some sort of new normal as well. And look, before the pandemic, we had already seen this major tectonic shift happening. When you look at major retailers that had these bloated balance sheets because of real estate, right? We were seeing other brands, digitally native brands with curated pop-up locations or select locations in certain cities, really thriving from a physical retail store standpoint. So that had already started. I think that was accelerated quite a bit, obviously, right, by the pandemic, because every business had to then shift to e-commerce one way or another. So now we're going to settle back in. And I think some of those trends that had already started to pick up steam, there's more opportunity for those now to occur in a more meaningful way. It's just going to be interesting to see how brands do it, because I think rising tides lift all boats, whether that's e-commerce, whether that's retail. I think there's a lot of people who are eager to get back into the mix in terms of shopping, trying things on, but e-commerce is not going anywhere either. So it's just going to be interesting to see the way that brands have that balance of the two that'll both play critically important parts to their strategy moving forward.
Yeah.
But the connectivity between those two approaches is what I think will be sort of the cornerstone of our new normal. How do you create an experience, whether you're in a curated pop-up shop in Soho or you're shopping online? Like, how do you unify that customer experience? Because the way people shop will be different and will be new. But will e-commerce drop? That I don't see happening.
Yeah, no. I'm just giving a flat no to that question. I mean, I think that, like, giving a real hot take. And I think the actual answer here is that, like, I don't really have a hot take. Like, and I don't think anyone does. At the beginning of the pandemic, I actually wrote a piece for Yotpo about how e-commerce was going to change. And we were all just like throwing rocks in a bucket, hoping that something would actually come out true. I mean, we had a lot of predictions and a lot of research and data to base it on. But when you're looking at something like a worldwide pandemic, the same way that it was absolutely shocking to us every step of the way, that's how it was for e-commerce. And I think the reason that we could make some of those predictions was because it didn't make up a path for e-commerce growth. It wasn't totally shocking. It just accelerated it. And so things moved a lot quicker. They moved much faster. And so we were able to look at things that we had predicted based on consumer shopping habits, based on brands, and able to predict things that we thought would happen in a couple of years, happening in a couple of months or days or weeks. And I think, like, now we're talking about coming out of that. That growth is already there. Consumers have already adjusted to it. They have already, like, you begin to, like, have an affinity for those brands that you went back to again and again during a time when you were sitting inside and had nothing better to do. I remember like the first couple of weeks of the pandemic when I realized we weren't going back, May 1st or whatever. I ordered like in a real panic buying mode, ordered like 8 dresses because I was like, I'm never wearing pants again. And I go back to that brand all the time because I'm like, okay, thank you. I'll just continue to shop here. And I think like it's a brand that I've traditionally gone into their stores, and now I'm just kind of like, whatever, I'll just order it online. Like you have to remember that even people that were so into in-person shopping are now like they had to be trained to shop online. And so even if they want to go back for like revenge shopping and there might be like a little bit of a bounce back that like comes in real hard and fast and everybody's suddenly shopping in store again, eventually people are going to settle and things are going to settle. And you have to remember that consumers that we expected would never really order from Amazon or order directly from brands online without seeing something in person. I think a lot of it's going to come down to convenience. A lot of it's going to come down to brand loyalty. A lot of it's going to come down to what brands are doing to keep the connection going, like you said, on an omni-channel level. If I go into the store, does that relationship continue when I'm online? Can I still log in? When I'm in the store, can I like scan my receipt for loyalty points? All of those different things. And so I think there's a ton of factors that go into it. And I think we can make the predictions that we did, a year ago, based on what we think is going to come next. But in the same way that this past year, so many curveballs have been thrown our way. Like, I don't think I've ever heard so many people say buy online, pick up in store. It's going to continue to happen that way. And I think that it's going to feel like that for a while. And you're also like, just while I'm rambling, you're also brands tried more interesting things when they were during the pandemic. They tried cooler stuff. They tried going live like we are now. They tried sending gifts. They tried new things with loyalty. Like we saw it at Yotpo. We saw brands trying to find new and different ways to connect with their customers virtually and create, like almost replicate those in-store experiences. And so they're going to continue doing that. And so if you're not innovating, if you're not already doing, like a year ago, we might have said, okay, consider a loyalty program. Now it's like, if you aren't considering a loyalty program, what are you doing? And I think that like that kind of trajectory is going to continue. You have to continue to innovate. You have to continue to reconsider what you're doing, because the same brands that worked outside of the box in an actual pandemic are just going to go that much harder.
And push the envelope.
Settle down. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was still so hung up on revenge shopping. It's like retail therapy, but way more aggressive and like could be a reality show. So we could be onto something there.
I've been doing revenge shopping and I see myself doing it. And like today I had like a very weird, it's almost like the panic buying of the pandemic is now like revenge shopping. And so I feel myself like clicking purchase and then being like, whoa, who's that girl? What's going on here? Are you okay? And now it's like I'm getting packages every day. Like in the same way that we see all the memes about people being like, if you don't get a package, is it even like, did time even pass? Was it even a day? Like there are days you get packages and don't get packages. I think that it's very real. Like it was something that people really looked forward to as a connection to things beyond their like environment, beyond what they could do in a pandemic. And so like, when you got to try new skincare or a new shirt, even sitting in your house, new sweatpants, like it was an exciting experience. It was a peak of a day. And so I think being able to like go out and buy stuff again, whether it's online or in person, chef's kiss.
The dopamine hit will be there.
It's going to be me.
Whenever it happens.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to our next one. This one's a little aggressive, but we'll go into it. I think a lot about how to take down our main competitor. Lol, is that healthy? Any tips?
Wow. Well, I guess that's a good segue from revenge shopping. There's a lot of just like
really?
aggression in the e-commerce landscape.
Wednesday. People need to like kind of get their venting out so they can prepare for Friday. What about?
Very true. Very true. Look, I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say I've had those same thoughts myself, right? Everybody does. Thank you for sharing, anonymous question asker.
Yeah.
We appreciate that. But I think, it's not as simple as like the industrial era of like being better on price, or, simply what I think was great for a while and still can be, right, is having, a better customer service, better customer experience. That's certainly a really important element of it. But if you really want to be trying to figure out, every market is saturated these days, just given the prevalence of e-commerce. So it's like finding your niche and finding the area that you want to deliver something exceptional to your customers. It doesn't just need to be on that price point, but I think it's identifying like, what is this competitor you really want to take down? What is it that they're doing well, and what is it that they're not doing well? Is there an opportunity for you to create, more educational opportunities? So we'll talk about this with SMS, for example, but everybody, I think, seems to be hyper focused in a lot of these marketing automation channels around, promotional opportunities or just driving revenue. But these channels present really unique opportunities for content, education, engagement that maybe your competitor isn't doing. How do you create some sort of experiential opportunity for the end customer to feel an attachment to the brand? Whether that's, so in the event of a pandemic, somebody goes and buys 8 new dresses the moment that the pandemic hits. How do you create that type of connectivity with the customer? So I think it's a lot about research, seeing what innovative brands are doing. It could be as tactical as, do you have is there, based on your business model, a subscription opportunity to bake in that kind of recurring dopamine hit that we're talking about, where the package is showing up to your front door, set it and forget it, but you still get that opportunity to, feel that connection with the brand. So there are less legal ways you can go about taking down competitors. I don't think that's the real tone of this podcast.
Recommending it. You can call it a podcast if you want. I mean, it's the first session.
I want. I'm
now
here.
Time to establish, like, are you guys watching a podcast? Is anyone still watching? That sort of thing. I think in response to this question, this might be more of like I don't know, maybe this is an answer that will hopefully take you beyond your thoughts about competitors, maybe beyond your job. Maybe like my therapist might give you this answer, but like, let it go. Let it go. You can obsess about, if there's anything that I've learned from our co-founder Tomer, like anytime that we say, well, someone's doing this or someone's doing this, he's like, okay, what are we doing? What are we doing? And I think that still hits really strong. What are you doing to innovate? What are you doing to stand out? What kind of programs are you doing? Like, the more that you're focused on worrying about a competitor, the more that you're spending time catching up to them, because every new thing that they do, you're going to be watching and be like, okay, should I do that now? When in reality, if you weren't paying attention to them, you would be doing more creative and innovative things to better connect with your community and create those like extremely, extremely impactful and cool and creative customer experiences. And they're going to be looking at you being like, whoa, what's going on there? They're on a whole different playing field. And so like within e-commerce, outside of it, let everybody else go. Focus on yourself, turn inwards. If you're constantly looking at others, it's like always going to be a competitive landscape, and you're constantly going to be in a space of comparison. So the more that you can just look inwards and be like, what can I offer? It's also like, if you have any kind of shop, you probably have somebody that's really, really excited about your product. Like one of our content team leaders was sharing today that one of our brands was like, yeah, we always read reviews from end customers at the beginning of team meetings to get people excited. And I think like that's a really cool thing. Like the more time that you spend getting to know yourselves, getting to define your brand and your approach, the more that you get to know your community and like really connect with them, the more ideas that you're going to have about how to do that in a way that's impactful and really cool. And your competitor is just going to be like hanging on the sidelines, watching you do amazing things. And so my advice is let them go. Release that, relinquish the control, all that stuff.
Kate, I'm not going to lie, like in the unlikely scenario that it is just you and me having a conversation, with you saying to look inwards and the books behind you, this does for me feel a little bit like a therapy session. And for that, I thank you.
I mean, it applies to parenting. You can really take this advice anywhere. And I'd actually like to credit my therapist for telling me that. But like, you got to let this stuff go. My manager and I talk about it all the time, because when I first started at Yotpo, I was constantly like, oh my gosh, what's happening here? What's happening here? What's happening here? And she was like, you just got to let that go. Like, move forward, do your job, do good stuff. And since I've been able to do that, been able to do so much better stuff, just as a wide PSA about my job trajectory. But I think it's just like, it really is applicable anywhere. The more that you can sort of let people do their thing and stay in your own lane, the more that you're going to be able to expand your horizons and do really, really cool stuff.
Look at this. You come for the e-commerce advice, you get IPA reviews, conspiracy theories, wellness tips, everything. I'm glad that we're building it as we go. This is excellent.
I mean, like, I guess I should say, like, feel free to reach out. Like, if you're having any problems, like, personally, like, I'm here. I'm not a licensed therapist, but I will help in the framework of Yotpo.
Yeah, go to Kate.
Yeah.
Go to me. Go to Kate.
Okay.
All right.
We have our last question that we're going to do today. We're going to bring it home. This one's about SMS. So I know you get excited. You guys keep talking about SMS. I don't know how to do it without making it feel like spam. Advice.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is there's such a wide spectrum of experience for brands, and not just based on the size of the brand, just so many different factors that go into whether a brand has, formal been there, done that experience with SMS in the channel. And we're seeing more and more, particularly over the course of the pandemic, that SMS marketing was something that accelerated quite a bit, given that brands were forced into this corner of how do we communicate with people differently. And everybody knows we're glued to these. I will not show my screen time update on this live.
No.
This live, I won't, because I'll spare myself that. But I think anybody who falls into that camp of kind of dipping their toe in the water, thinking, "What is this the right channel for me? How do I get started?" Keep in mind that this is an opt-in only channel, and there's a bunch of really good reasons for that. One is from a compliance perspective, where we probably need to double the amount of time here so we could cover all the bases there. Does have you covered on all of those bases domestically and internationally from a compliance perspective. There's my one. But this is an opportunity for your customers, now subscribers, to opt in to communicate with you differently. And why does it feel spammy in some situations? I think if you batch and blast, if you're trying to take a one-size-fits-all approach to hitting up customers 8 times a month with the exact same message, the exact same copy that isn't informed by anything about who they are, anything about their relationship with the brand, that's where you then start to run into, to talk about a topic from earlier, that leaky bucket concept. People aren't going to want to hear from you anymore. So with that said, the only way, and what we fundamentally believe here, the only way that you can be successful in this channel is by creating personalized experiences. Now, personalization is a very buzzy word. I'm going to be the first one to... No, I'm the first one to admit it. I mean, personalization is a really buzzy word, but think about it for a second. This channel is the channel where the device that you use to text your partner, your friends, your parents. So in order for you to create a unique and personalized experience and connection with that customer in this channel, it has to be tailored to them. And so you need to be sending them the right message at the right time. It needs to be informed by consumer behavior, about preferences that they've indicated to you via text. You can't just be sending these promotions or flash sales. You will see revenue from those. Do not get me wrong. If you're investing in SMS as a channel, it's a huge revenue opportunity. But to have a long-lasting relationship in the channel, to be able to continue to use this as a means of communicating with customers for a lifetime value, or through a lifetime value lens, you need to be delivering on personalized experiences. So that's I think, a few of the different ways that you can, at least from a philosophical standpoint, think about it.
Talk to us about personalization, Curly.
Man, I'm not a buzzword guy, so I believe in this one. I subscribe to this. No pun intended. I'm going to use that. That's the super cluster talking.
Yeah. I think I mean, I think of SMS like as a more, I don't know if I can or should say this, but I think of SMS similar to email, especially in the framework of like being fearful about it being spammy. There was one time at my first job, one of our competitors sent out 6 emails within 24 hours because they weren't properly, I mean, I would assume because they weren't like properly segmenting their list or something. And it was an ongoing joke that we would all screenshot how many emails we had gotten from X brand that is now closed down. Unfortunately, they were great that day. And I think like SMS is kind of the same thing. Like if I'm getting 6 text messages from a brand in a week, I'm going to be like, you need to calm down. This actually isn't what I need right now.
Right.
And so like I've signed up for SMS from brands, and it's super easy for me to reply stop or cancel or whatever I need to do to get them to stop contacting me. It's easier than an email. And so when I signed up for those, like I've been getting CBD, loungewear, and then like a bedding loungewear company. And then I think maybe an activewear one. Oh, and a skincare one. And I, routinely get those. I get like one a week. And that's from all of them. It's, it's not constant updates. I don't need the play by play. I don't need you telling me every single new launch. But I want to know if you're having a sale. I want to know if you're doing a give back to a really cool organization. I want to know if you're having a sale on a product that I bought 6 months ago that I really, really liked. And I think that's where kind of that personalization that you're talking about comes in, and understanding kind of who you're talking to. Like when you have something like SMS bump or Yotpo SMS, then you actually get to be able to kind of know who you're talking to and really like personalize those conversations with them. And I think that it's a really, really cool thing that you're able to do. I personally like it because my inbox currently has 2,613 unread emails right now.
That stresses me out.
It stresses me out, but also like I clean them out and then I come back and there's 300 new emails and half of them are promotional, and I'm just archiving them and unsubscribing when Google tells me that I haven't opened an email in 6 months. And so I think texting is a way for me also to be like, here are the brands I actually really care about that I'll give my information to. And so I think that it can be really, really effective.
Well, I mean, look, Kate, imagine a world with me, and I swear I'm on a soapbox quite literally right now. You just can't see it. But imagine a world where not just that it's a brand that you care about, right, which is a very fundamental step, right, in that process. But imagine a communication strategy on a device that's highest engagement, right? SMS, 98% get open, 90% of the way you're being communicated to and with is based on review data that you've written, is based on your current status in a VIP tier program, right? That type of detail and that unified view of the customer allows you to avoid not just spam, we're light years ahead of that at this point with what we're talking about, but allows you to actually achieve that really personalized, again, there I am with this buzzword, connection with the consumer. And I think absent that data, what people will see longer term is that this channel will become what email in many ways has become, which is 3,000 emails in Kate's inbox, lower engagement. So you need to have that conversational opportunity. You need to be encouraging customers to identify their preferences. And your communication strategy shouldn't even start until it's informed by who is this customer, what is our relationship with them. And I think that's all I have to say about that.
I swear we're going to give you an SMS only office hours one of these days.
Just me in a room by myself.
You in a room. I'm not even going to be here. It's going to be you and a beer talking about SMS, and you can have a whole soapbox. Thank you to everybody for listening to us totally geek out on SMS, especially knowing that it is kind of sponsored content because Yotpo SMS, that it is a really, really cool product. And like, frankly, I do like getting texts from those brands that I've opted into, and the ones that I didn't, kind of like there are a few times I've signed up for a giveaway and I've given someone my phone number in the same way you might with email. And then suddenly I'm getting all these texts, and it's so easy. I just reply stop. You can literally do that with any text that you're getting from any brand, company, whatever, and they'll stop. And so I personally really like it, especially because none of my emails are clearly getting through to me.
There you go. Kate, I've been thinking about this. I don't know, do we have a cool sign off? Is there going to be a cool, like, this has been Kate and Curly coming at you for IPA tips and wellness inspiration? I don't know. You tell me.
I feel like the fact that we called it a podcast during this.
Thank you for saying we. I just did.
Good. I took that on for you because we're both here.
Yeah.
I feel like I also want to leave the IPA thing open. Like, what if one time I want to bring on like Drink House? Maybe I want to bring on a cool wine, a champagne.
Let's not limit ourselves. It's the first inaugural episode.
It's going to be great. We're going to be reviewing drinks the whole time. But I think we could probably come up with a handshake and should at a later date. But in the meantime, thank you all for watching. I have no idea how many of you are actually out there watching. I hope that you enjoyed it. We will be doing this on a regular basis. If you follow us on LinkedIn, you'll be notified whenever we go live. It will be me and Curly and some sort of drink per usual. If you have any questions from this or anything that sort of comes up, or if you just want to tell us how great it was or how not great it was, feel free to DM us on any of our social platforms, or just like comment on the video once it goes live on LinkedIn, and let us know what you thought. All feedback is productive, please. And so, yeah, thank you all for watching, and you'll hear from us again soon. Thanks, Curly.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.